My boyfriend's first love was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and with red eyes, he broke up with me. She won't last 3 months. I don't want her to leave with any regrets. Don't worry, I'll send her off and then come back to you. The deep affection and responsibility in his voice really moved me. 3 months later, after the memorial for his first love, he came back to find me. I pulled the man next to me into my arms and said, "Let me introduce him. This is my husband. Jeremy and I broke up." In his words, the breakup was only temporary. His first love, Natalie, had late-stage stomach cancer. To leave this world without any regrets, she reached out to him in her final days. Jeremy, ever loyal, kept his word and really came to break up with me. She won't last 3 months. I don't want her to leave with any regrets. Don't worry, I'll send her off and then come back to you. His sincere and responsible look really touched me. Even if it meant waiting another day, he couldn't wait any longer. Even if it meant missing our anniversary today, he wouldn't let me look so pathetic. My hand froze for a moment, and as I poured the wine, I tipped the glass too far. The wine spilled over, flowing onto the pristine tablecloth, staining it with a deep red color. It looked like an ugly, huge wound. I didn't feel much anger. For some reason, I just thought the tablecloth was a shame to waste. I had chosen it carefully. In fact, I had been looking forward to this anniversary for a month. I had been working overtime lately just so I could rush home and prepare a delicate candlelit dinner for tonight. Jeremy looked even guiltier, his tone more urgent. "I swear, I'll marry you. If you could just wait a little longer, give me a bit more time." He was understanding, gentle, sincere, and refined. I had once loved these very qualities about Jeremy, but never imagined that one day, the things that once attracted me to him would feel like knives in my heart. I forced myself to stay calm and said, "Wouldn't it be better to spend her last days with her family?" He froze for a moment, a flash of shock crossing his face, as though I had said something cruel and heartless. "Iris, you have everything: loving parents, a bright future, a healthy and beautiful body. But Natalie, she only has me. I can't let her leave with regrets." We'd been together for 2 years, and he rarely called me by name. I looked up at him. It was still the person I loved, still the face I adored, but as I watched him sacrifice everything for someone else, he suddenly seemed a little foreign. Seeing me silent, Jeremy grew more anxious. "You understand, right? You can at least sympathize with her. What are you fighting for, against someone who's about to die? Just trust me." I never imagined I would be morally blackmailed by Jeremy. I snapped back to reality and softly said, "Of course I understand how you feel." Jeremy's face immediately brightened with relief and joy. "So, you agree then?" I nodded, not saying anything else, only feeling the bitter irony of it all. My boyfriend, using his skills as a lawyer, attacked me for someone else. I'd been in so many courtrooms, handled countless cases, and faced many sharp-tongued lawyers, but none of those moments felt as confusing as this one. After I gave in, Jeremy immediately went into the room and came out with a suitcase. I couldn't help but laugh to myself. He had been prepared all along. No matter what I said, he was going. He just wanted to hand me the notice: "Iris, your boyfriend is going to take care of someone else. Please don't be unreasonable or lacking in compassion." When Jeremy returned and hugged me, I hugged him back. "So we're breaking up then?" He nodded and hurried out the door. I slowly sat at the table, finishing my share of the perfect steak. It really tasted good. Even without Jeremy's company, the taste didn't change. After dinner, I put on gloves and cleared away everything that belonged to Jeremy, packing it all up and tossing it into the yard. Temporary breakup? What a joke. In my dictionary, a breakup means forever. Jeremy and I were both lawyers at the same firm. He joined the firm first and is a few years older than me. At our firm, efficiency and focus are the guiding principles. We're all used to being cold and detached when dealing with clients, because we know that investing too much emotion isn't necessary and only leads to pain. But Jeremy was different. He was a lawyer with empathy, and his emotional connection with clients always resonated deeply with them. Over time, I couldn't help but be drawn to him. He was like a ray of sunshine in our high-pressure, cold office, attracting anyone who longed for warmth. So, I ended up with him. I'm not sure if it's because I met Jeremy too late, but there's always been a Natalie in his heart. Men are always boys at heart, aren't they? These days, what man in his 30s doesn't have a white moonlight in his heart? What I value more is the present and the future. At first, Natalie was living abroad, and I didn't think she posed a threat to me. But when she came back to the country recently, Jeremy started acting more strangely, and the woman's intuition told me something was off between them. Turns out, I was right. My intuition has helped me countless times before. Jeremy's warmth was indiscriminate. He didn't know how to set boundaries, especially after Natalie fell ill. His behavior became erratic for several days, until he finally spoke up. Yes, I have a happy family, a promising career, and I'm young and healthy. So, should I step aside for someone else just because they're suffering? Is this what love has become? A competition over who's the saddest? I couldn't make sense of it, so I decided not to think about it. I generously stepped aside for this pair of lovers. By the way, this villa is just one of my properties. We moved here because Jeremy liked it. I packed a small bag, called a moving company, took a day off, and moved to one of my other properties. I had an agent put the villa up for sale. I told my mom I was moving and reassured her not to worry. My time is valuable, billed by the minute. I didn't tell Jeremy about the move. First, there was no need to. Second, if he had any awareness at all, he'd realize his luggage was still under the roof of my villa. It's a bit funny. Jeremy has worked in this competitive city for so many years, but he doesn't even have a place of his own, and I don't even know where to send his stuff. I've never cared about material things. The only thing I care about is one person's heart. After settling into my new place, I went to the office. There was a case that required me to go out of town for evidence collection. I had cancelled it to be with Jeremy for the anniversary, but now I wanted to take it back. My boss shrugged. We gave it to another team. Is there any other case that requires going out of town? There is one, but I'll take it. And just like that, I was on a plane to City A with my assistant. On the plane, I opened the case files, planning to organize my thoughts. I didn't expect it to be a divorce case. I hadn't taken on a divorce case in years. My assistant, Gil, explained, the boss said the case isn't difficult, but the extra conditions are a bit. I nodded slightly, looking at the files and falling into thought. There was hardly any information, just confidentiality clauses. I'd have to meet with the client to fill in the gaps. The extra conditions were definitely a bit odd. After getting off the plane, Gil and I took a short break before heading to the meeting spot. The moment the door opened, I understood why the details were kept confidential. I even felt like turning around and leaving right then. Lawrence, the notorious rich second-generation playboy, had just made a big splash last month by marrying an influencer. Is he getting a divorce this month? A quiet murmur came from beside me, and Gil, realizing too late, quickly covered her mouth. A newly graduated young woman, unable to keep her cool. Lawrence had an extremely handsome face, and his expression was lazy, almost like a big cat, looking both lazy and aloof. He was absolutely stunning, and after all these years, his beauty hadn't changed at all. Lawrence sat down, glanced at me a few times, then raised an eyebrow. Just so you know, we have to sign a confidentiality agreement. I opened my laptop and, in a businesslike manner, said, "May I ask about the specific situation?" His peach blossom eyes locked onto me. My parents are pushing for me to get married. I had a marriage contract with Enid, and now she doesn't want a divorce. I felt a bit uneasy under his gaze. If there's a contract, she shouldn't be breaking it. Right, I've given her all the money I promised. Now that she doesn't want money, she wants me. Does she think she can just have me whenever she wants? I couldn't be bothered with his self-absorption. Speak in plain terms. I don't want my parents to know it's a marriage of convenience. So, he was caught in a compromising position. While we were talking, Lawrence moved closer to me. From this angle, his peach blossom eyes were especially captivating, deep and affectionate. I sighed and motioned for Gil to step out and coordinate with Lawrence's secretary about the paperwork. Then, I raised my hand and, with an emotionless expression, pushed Lawrence's face away from mine. Lawrence, with a look of grievance, grabbed my hand. "Iris, you can't hold it against me just because I rejected you back then. This is personal. I took a deep breath and flashed a professional smile. Let me remind you, that was when we were in kindergarten. Also, that was a fight, not me confessing to you. Did you sacrifice your IQ for that face and body? Lawrence's attractive face seemed slightly deflated. Can you not be so sharp-tongued? It's been years, and you still haven't changed. I packed up my files and stood up slowly. You know me well, so why are you saying all this? Help me win this case, and I'll open a law firm for you, Lawrence said eagerly. After enduring this conversation for a while, I couldn't take it anymore and stood up to leave. Lawrence, this guy, relied on his good looks and sweet talk, and he had always been adored by all the nearby aunties since he was a child. My mom was no exception. So, even though I hadn't had much contact with him over the years, my mom had kept in touch with him. It's not hard to guess why I was assigned this case. Just then, the door to the office was pushed open, and a woman with a pure look walked in. With her long, black hair and delicate, pitiful air, she immediately exuded a fragile, high-maintenance vibe. Darling, is this the new woman you found? Are you really divorcing me for her? Her voice was both sweet and resentful. Her tone sent shivers down my spine. I was about to explain myself and quickly leave, but Lawrence tugged at me from behind, whispering, if she finds out I'm looking for a lawyer, what will happen? The case hasn't even started yet, we can't afford to lose. Well, at least you know you're a broken pot. I took a deep breath and put on a professional smile. I'm just passing through for business and stopped by to see Lawrence. The moment I spoke, the entire office went silent. Everyone's expressions were strange and awkward. I thought I had said something wrong, but it was Enid who reacted quickly. She eagerly grabbed my hand, as if this had been rehearsed in front of countless live-stream cameras. Then she dragged me off to lunch, with Lawrence tagging along. I don't know if it was just my impression, but Enid seemed genuinely interested in me during the meal, asking about things from our past. So you two were childhood neighbors, growing up together, huh? I was reluctantly recalling my past with Lawrence, while he, on the other hand, kept silent. What was this ambiguous attitude? Did Enid actually see me as a rival? Forget it, no use overthinking it. I decided to treat this as a farewell meal. Once we left the restaurant, I would take Gil back. To my surprise, Enid left even earlier than I did. She took a call, said she had something urgent, and rushed out. She even paid the bill. I couldn't believe how easy it was for her to leave. Soon, the table was just the three of us. I put down my chopsticks. Lawrence, what's really going on between the two of you? Gil, as always, was eager for gossip. Lawrence cleared his throat. Let me be honest, she has another man on the side. That call just now was probably from him. They're trying to milk money out of me, so they're doing everything they can to extend the marriage. That's why she's been so nice to you. So now, we need to find evidence of her infidelity, so we can get the divorce. I thought it over for a moment. His explanation made sense, but something felt off. Why isn't we finding the evidence? I'm not taking this case. Lawrence's face looked deflated. On our way out, Lawrence kept talking nonstop while pulling at my arm. The door opened, and a familiar figure appeared in front of me. I stopped in my tracks, looking at the two people in front of me. Lawrence was saying, "Come on, we've known each other since we were kids." Iris? What are you doing here? Jeremy was holding a woman's arm and looked extremely surprised to see me and Lawrence. This must be Natalie. She did look fragile, leaning on Jeremy in a way that instantly made you feel sympathy for her. Lawrence immediately wiped all expressions from his face and narrowed his eyes. Iris, who's he? The tension in the room was palpable. My mind raced with many thoughts at once. Now was a crucial moment for Jeremy's career, and yet here he was, neglecting his job just to be with Natalie. He really was going all in. Suddenly, I realized that the qualities I once admired in him, being down-to-earth, ambitious, and sincere, now seemed like a joke. No, it wasn't a joke for me, but it certainly must be for Natalie, who probably felt his devotion was sincere and heartfelt. I smiled and said to Lawrence, "This is my ex-boyfriend, with his first love." Lawrence seemed to understand. He threw an arm around my shoulder and addressed Jeremy with a look of disdain. "I'm Lawrence, Iris's childhood friend." The emphasis on childhood friend was as provocative as it could get. I sighed. This was a battlefield. Whoever wanted to stay in the fight could stay. I turned and walked out, with Jeremy calling my name behind me. I didn't look back. Lawrence took me and Gil back to the hotel to rest. "I'm only helping you because you're helping me. Don't go sneaking off on me." He said that like he had something more to say, but then ended by reminding me to rest. Gil cautiously leaned in. "Are you really over with Mr. Jeremy?" I picked up a knife to cut an orange and nodded. "It's really over." I didn't think much of it, but Gil seemed anxious. "I didn't mean anything by it, I just think everyone thought you and Mr. Jeremy were a perfect couple." Suddenly breaking up. Gil clenched her fist. I saw the way he looked at his first love. It was clear. Gil noticed I didn't react, so she stopped talking. I thought I'd be angry, like Gil, an outsider, was angry. But when it happened, I just felt calm. It was a lost bet. Nothing major. I decided to take on Lawrence's case. After all, there's no rush, and it's not very demanding. It's almost like a vacation for myself. But I didn't expect Lawrence to take me along to catch someone cheating. I was completely in disbelief. "I told you, I'm a lawyer, not a gossip reporter." Lawrence said confidently, "Isn't collecting evidence part of your job?" I shook my head. "You can bring Gil along, or hire a private investigator." "No, this is something you need to know. Outsiders can't be involved, don't I care about my reputation?" At this point, I was too exhausted to argue. Lawrence and I entered a business club, where it was rumored that Enid was meeting her lover in a private room next door. We hid around a corner and watched as Enid walked in arm with a man, clearly very intimate. As we were hiding, I suddenly noticed something was off. The distance between Lawrence and me had become too close. His cologne was so strong that it almost invaded my senses. It was assertive and aggressive. For a moment, I felt dizzy, remembering that boy who used to fight with me. He had long since grown into a man. Just then, the door to the room suddenly opened, and the man inside started walking toward us. It was too late to leave now, and we couldn't slip into another room. In the next second, Lawrence quickly pulled down his hat, apologized, and, before I could react, cupped my face and kissed me. My mind went blank, and I felt like the world around me had suddenly quieted down. I heard someone walk past and click their tongue, as though commenting on something. After what felt like an eternity, Lawrence finally pulled away, and my mind started to clear. There was no one else around. Lawrence whispered, "I've got the pictures." That was a spur-of-the-moment thing. I took a deep breath to steady myself and nodded, "I'm going to the bathroom. Wait for me outside." Lawrence, relieved that I didn't press him further, nodded quickly. It took me a while to find the bathroom. After splashing water on my face to clear my head, I was about to retouch my makeup when I overheard someone on the phone. "Don't worry, just do as I said. There won't be any issues. Once you've got her, don't forget our agreement." Then a few more irrelevant words, followed by the sound of the door opening. I quickly ducked into a stall, watching as the person walked out. It was Enid's voice, and it was definitely her walking away. Who was she talking to? What was this plan? What did she mean by "get her"? When Lawrence and I went back, neither of us said anything. My mind was too occupied with Enid's conversation, and before I knew it, we had arrived at the hotel. Lawrence said goodbye, but his eyes still carried a trace of regret. I feigned nonchalance and tried to comfort him, "We're all adults here. A little mishap can be understood, right? With that look on your face, you'd make me think you have feelings for me." Lawrence didn't expect me to say that. His face instantly turned red, clearly flustered. In the end, he didn't say anything else and left, still fuming. I shrugged and headed into the hotel, only to spot someone sitting in the lobby. They had clearly been waiting for a while. I squinted. "Jeremy, what are you doing here?" Jeremy's face was as dark as thunder. "I need to talk to you." I slumped into the sofa, rubbing my temples. "Go ahead." I did some checking on Lawrence. "He's already married," Jeremy said, staring at me intently. "Yeah, I know. So what?" Jeremy looked at me with obvious pain. "Even if we broke up, it's only temporary. How could you let yourself sink this low and get involved in someone else's marriage?" I froze and turned to him. "So this is how you see me?" Jeremy spoke earnestly. I told you, just wait for me for 3 months. Why would you do something so foolish? Foolish? I suddenly wanted to laugh. So this is how Jeremy viewed me? That look he gave me that day wasn't love, but contempt. Isn't it? Iris, you've really disappointed me. I had loved him for 2 years, but now, for some reason, he felt so unfamiliar to me. I slowly stood up, looking down at Jeremy. So, I've disappointed you. What are you going to do about it? As long as you turn back now, our agreement still stands. Jeremy looked like he was either offering me mercy or threatening me. Unfortunately, I didn't need either. I smiled and tapped the table with my finger. Let me guess what you're thinking. Jeremy's body tensed. You probably just got a call from the agency telling you to pick up your things, right? Also, Gil told me yesterday that your leave wasn't approved by the company. You took time off without permission. Aren't you about to get disciplined? Natalie doesn't have much time left. After she leaves, you still need to live, don't you? I'm such a good catch, such a great second option. Where else can you find someone like me? So really, it's you who can't leave me. Every word I spoke made Jeremy's face grow paler, until it was almost completely drained of color. Jeremy. I thought he could give up everything for Natalie. I admired him for that. But he was nothing but a complete hypocrite. He wanted to keep his reputation as the devoted, loyal man, but at the same time, he wanted a woman who wouldn't betray him. But I wasn't foolish enough to wait for him to come back around. Iris. Do you really think I have no feelings for you? Jeremy's face twisted with hurt. I didn't say anything, just looked at him. He closed his eyes, as though drained of all strength, then spoke hoarsely. I overheard Lawrence and Enid talking. They're using you for something. I froze. Enid's words came rushing back to my mind. I took a deep breath. If it were someone else, they might have gone along with Jeremy's words and asked for the full story. Jeremy knew how to read people. He knew how to pull at their heartstrings and steer things in his favor. But so what? Iris, never turn back. It's none of your business. We've broken up. Jeremy, frustrated, retorted, aren't you worried about Lawrence's scheme? Whatever he's planning, I'll have him explain it. But that's none of your concern. I lowered my head slightly, meeting his eyes. You just need to go back, pack your things, and leave my life for good. Goodbye. Jeremy was speechless. Finally, he looked at me deeply. I know you're angry right now. Once you've cooled down, you'll come back to me. Consider this your time to adjust your mood. With that, he turned and left. I watched him go, then turned to the door and saw a tall, sneaky figure standing there. It was Lawrence, holding 2 cups of coffee. I passed by a coffee shop, and they had your favorite latte. I looked him up and down. We haven't seen each other in a while. How do you know I like lattes? Lawrence fell silent. I turned to leave. Come with me. Back in the room, Lawrence held the coffee away from me. Just so you know, don't throw it on me. I just did my hair. I almost laughed out loud. This peacock was still concerned about his hair. Enough with the small talk. What's going on with you? I'd been sensing something was off, and now all the clues were pointing to Lawrence. I had to get to the bottom of it. Lawrence finally stopped resisting. Okay, here's the thing. Since their family moved to City A when we were in high school, Lawrence has always kept in touch with my mom. 2 years ago, after Lawrence returned from studying abroad, he tried to pursue me. But by then, I was already with Jeremy, so he had to back off. Later, he met Enid by chance. Enid had helped Lawrence out, but then ran into some trouble, so she ended up having a fake marriage with him. The man she was really with was her actual boyfriend. On the day I moved, my mom found out that Jeremy and I had broken up, and she told Lawrence. That's how everything that followed happened, including the divorce case. It was all part of a plan. Lawrence was trying to bring me over. Of course, the fact that I liked lattes was something my mom told him. I was stunned and asked, why couldn't you just tell me what you wanted directly? All this elaborate planning. Lawrence looked at me with a trace of grievance and said, if I told you I love you, what do you think your reaction would be? Are you out of your mind? I blurted out without thinking. Lawrence slouched back on the sofa. See? This is the reason. I had this whole hero saving the damsel script in mind, but now it's all gone to waste. He added, with a grin, I didn't expect you to figure it out so quickly, Iris. You're amazing, nothing escapes your eyes. Then why come to City A? Lawrence finally got serious. He sat up straight and reined in his usual playboy attitude. I'll take you somewhere tomorrow. To be honest, my memories from childhood have faded quite a bit. But tonight, I had a rare dream about the past. Lawrence had always had a handsome face, and he was always well liked, except by me. The reason was simple, I couldn't stand him. The first place I had to work so hard for, he could get with no effort at all. When Lawrence moved away, it was sudden. Given the way we had always clashed, I should have been happy he was leaving. But later, I realized life without him was even more boring than before. However, I had gotten used to it. My life had become like a meticulously wound-up clock, with every moment planned out. At first, I was forced to study hard, but eventually, it became a habit I even carried into my work. I became the youngest team leader at the law firm. Because of this, my life lacked color, which was why I ended up liking the gentle Jeremy. I also heard news about Lawrence from mutual friends. His family had become wealthy, and Lawrence had turned into a spoiled rich second-generation heir, still living the same carefree life, even marrying a popular internet celebrity. I thought there would be no more intersections between our lives. I just turned off my phone and focused on my work because my professional life couldn't afford any mistakes. Like how I rarely reminisce about the past, Lawrence would never long for it either. Jeremy's request for a breakup shattered all my plans, but I was quick to adjust, even managing to get my emotions under control. Iris, there's nothing you can't get used to. After a full night's sleep, Lawrence was already there to pick me up. I didn't expect our destination to be an amusement park, one that looked very familiar to me. It seemed brand new, like it had just been built. Lawrence stood beside me, pointing at the park and asking, "Does this look familiar?" I was stunned, unable to speak. Of course, it was familiar. This was a drawing I did when I was in kindergarten. Back then, I wasn't a cold, mechanical person. I still had princess dreams. A fantasy castle, cartoon characters, those were my favorite things hidden in my heart. When I was in kindergarten, I had dropped this drawing as I walked past Lawrence, and he picked it up. Since the paper was pink, he thought it was a love letter to him. I couldn't stand it, so I ended up fighting with him, and from then on, I considered him my enemy. I never imagined he would keep that drawing all these years. Later, my family's business went into trouble, and we had to move. I didn't tell you because I was worried about what might happen. We went through some tough times. Then I got in touch with your mom and started asking about you. If you were happy, I would have kept this secret. But then, you broke up with Jeremy. Lawrence looked at me, his eyes a little red. Iris, I'm lucky, right? I couldn't speak for a long time. It wasn't just Lawrence overturning my impression of him in my mind. It was the trembling in his voice and the redness in his eyes. He seemed more sincere than anyone I had ever seen. My heart seemed to ripple. I lifted my foot and walked inside. Wasn't it built for me? Let's go, I want to play. Lawrence quickly followed, grabbing my hand. His hand was warm and dry. This time, I hesitated for a long time, but I didn't let go. I took an extended leave. It was the first time I had taken leave in all the years I'd worked. I suddenly felt like I had been moving too fast before. I wanted to slow down and take a good look at the world around me. My boss seemed to have known already. He didn't ask a thing and just approved my leave. My mom only called me once. Her voice on the phone was full of relief. Take this chance and rest well. Mom, did you already know? Iris, your dad and I both regret pushing you so hard when you were little, both in your studies and life. This time, take it at your own pace. No matter what you choose, we'll always support you. After hanging up the phone, all my worries disappeared. Lawrence took me around City A. Actually, I could tell he wasn't very familiar with the place either, probably because the family's business had failed, and then he went abroad. It turned out the spoiled rich kid everyone thought he was wasn't what he seemed. Even when he went abroad, he achieved top grades. In fact, his family's business empire expanded quickly, and he had contributed quite a bit to that. I actually couldn't envy him for that. At a bar, we ran into Enid, who was arm in arm with her boyfriend. Enid immediately let go of her boyfriend's arm and grabbed Lawrence's, her face looking like she was about to cry. "Darling, are you really just friends?" A look of awkwardness flashed across Lawrence's face as he subtly signaled to Enid. Enid pretended to be calm. "If that's the case, I'll..." I watched them play act, amused, while the man beside her looked helpless. "Stop it, it's obvious," Lawrence said with exasperation. Enid quickly dropped her act. "You know already?" Enid clung to her boyfriend again. "We're not anything. I have a real husband." That night, Lawrence got drunk and, pulling me close, asked pitifully, "When can I be the real husband?" I looked at his eyes, glistening with tears. After staring for a while, I had to admit, they were actually quite charming. Time passed quickly, and 3 months had flown by. My long vacation was also coming to an end. I brought Lawrence back to B City. As soon as I had settled him in and was about to pick a day to go home, the doorbell rang. I looked at Jeremy standing at the door, and I wasn't surprised at all. 3 months had passed, and if you do the math, Natalie's memorial service should have already ended. Jeremy's eyes were full of emotion as he gazed at me. "Iris, I've come back to find you as promised." I raised an eyebrow. "Who are you?" Jeremy frowned. "Stop playing games. From today onwards, let's do this properly." I couldn't help but want to laugh. "Jeremy, is your love like a light switch?" He seemed a bit caught off guard. "What do you mean? Can you just love anyone whenever you feel like it? Do you think that after Natalie's death, you've really let go? Do you feel at ease being with me? Or were you at ease when you were with Natalie?" Jeremy's face turned pale and green. He was speechless. At that moment, a tall man suddenly appeared next to me and pulled me into his arms. "Baby, who's here?" Jeremy looked at Lawrence and immediately regained the ability to speak. His face twisted in anger. "Didn't I tell you before? He's not well-intentioned. Don't let him deceive you." It was the same old story. After everything Jeremy had been through, he still hadn't learned. He always assumed that I would wait for him, that I was meant to be with him. I sighed and pulled Lawrence closer, enthusiastically introducing him. "Let me introduce you. This is my husband." Lawrence proudly showed off the ring on his finger. "We're legally married. We've exchanged vows." Jeremy left, looking utterly defeated. I didn't know where Jeremy went after that. I just heard that he had already been absent from work several times due to Natalie's situation, and eventually, he was fired from his job. Did he come to find me because he truly loved me, or did he see me as a backup plan? I didn't want to dig into it any further. Even the luggage from my villa was taken by him. Once, I thought Jeremy was my warmth, the redemption I had been seeking in my dull life. But now, I understand that he was nothing but a mirage, floating in the air, intangible, impossible to touch. Lawrence was the real thing I had been looking for. I brought him home, and I saw that even in the home that had always been meticulously organized, it slowly started to have little lively and interesting decorations. In my room, there were even a few new plush toys. Mom said, "He's been sending them one by one. He always says he didn't take good care of you when you were little." Actually, his words are probably meant for us too. You shouldn't keep yourself so tense. Slow down, take the time to enjoy the scenery along the way. I smiled and agreed. The truth is, I had no complaints, and I didn't harbor any resentment. When you want something, you always end up losing something else. And when you lose more, you will eventually be compensated. Lawrence even brought a small tree sapling to our garden. "We'll plant a tree here. Next year, we'll have fruit. If you like it, when it grows, you can even climb it." I couldn't help but laugh and cry at the same time. "How old are you, and you still want to climb trees?" Lawrence gently swept the strands of hair from my face, looking at me seriously. "Iris, I'll make it up to you." A warmth brushed my lips. This is what life is like. At certain moments, you realize that the people and things you lost were meant to be lost, and those losses were actually a kind of destiny, a fortunate turn of events. A breeze passed, and I slowly closed my eyes. I responded to the kiss, without any distractions. The end.